Chapter 18. Serve. One morning over breakfast, I asked my wife, "When you hear the word serve, who comes to mind?" Without hesitation, she named Kathy and Roger, a couple from the congregation she serves as pastor, and she went on to explain why. "You need some place to live while you find a new home? No problem," she said. "You need a wheelchair ramp built? Done. You need transportation to a doctor's appointment? They'll do it." My wife is right. This couple doesn't view service as one of many tasks or marks of a Christian. It's just who they are. They embody service. One summer evening years ago, I sat with Roger at a picnic bench in rural Appalachia. It was Wednesday of our service week with teens repairing homes. Roger and I had done a half-dozen of these trips together, and most of the time all had gone well. However, this week wasn't going well for Roger. His crew of 5 young people was a mess. The kids spent most of their week wasting time, being lazy, and calling each other names. Roger was frustrated, though you'd never have known it. He kept his frustration inside. It was clear to him that the project wasn't going to get finished on time. This fact disturbed him because the elderly resident depended on it. She had no money for the repairs, which included painting, new skirting around the mobile home, and insulation to help mitigate cold winters. So much for a week of changing lives and being changed. I asked him what he was going to do about his unruly crew. "Well, it's up to them," he explained. "Before we broke for lunch today, I got them together and apologized." "What? I don't understand," I said. "I thought you said they were goofing off, being lazy. Why did you apologize?" "True, they are a problem. But the more I thought about it, I realized it must be my fault. So I apologized and said clearly, I am failing as your adult leader. I outlined the project and what was yet to be completed, and how I must be doing something wrong because it's not going well, and it looked like we wouldn't be able to help this woman after all." Now, you need to understand something before I go on with the rest of the story. You might think Roger was trying to be clever. He was not. Roger is one thing: honest. He was putting his cards on the table with the kids in a very humble and transparent way. I'd seen him work with teenagers before. Although he is a master carpenter himself, in these projects, he's not cutting the boards and doing all the work himself. No, he's letting the kids go first, guiding when they need assistance, allowing them to learn from their mistakes, and coaching in the background. He's the master teacher. "What happened?" I asked. They were quiet for the rest of lunch. Didn't say a word. Eventually, one of the boys said, "Roger, it's not you. It's us. We're the ones who are failing. We've just been goofing around these last couple days. I think I've been the cause of the problem." What followed was a general confession on the part of the group. They all owned up to their mischievousness and vowed to do better. It was Wednesday, and the crew had until Friday afternoon to finish the project. They had only 2 days to do 5 days of work. What happened? On Friday at 5 p.m., the last paint was applied, and the group of kids hugged their resident, who cried tears of appreciation. They'd finished all the projects. In the van, on the way back to the school where we were all staying for the week, the kids bubbled with such joy and pleasure in themselves. Their spirits were high with a sense of accomplishment and service well done. Roger was driving. He just smiled to himself. When I saw him that evening, he finished the story and I said, "You know, you did great work this week." "No," he responded. "Those kids did great work." I could have spent the rest of the evening trying to convince him of his pivotal role in those kids' experience of service, but he would have batted away every attempt. So I just agreed. Yep, those kids did some great service. Of all the projects I've ever led in my years as a parish pastor, helping people discover the value of service ranks above all other activities as the single best tool for teaching everyday spirituality. High school youth mission trips to urban parts of Rochester, New York, or rural Tennessee, adults helping to build a church and community center in Central America, or families working in local places of need. In these projects, and many others like them, people discovered service as an expression of their faith. The theologian and futurist Len Sweet once described the Bible as a library containing what he calls ticking sacred time bombs. In various ages, different parts of the Scriptures would, in his words, explode. While detonation imagery might not be particularly helpful, his point is that through the ages, different parts of the Old and New Testaments have particular power and resonance. The 16th century saw the book of Romans. In our time, it just might be the book of James. What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if you say you have faith but do not have works? Can faith save you? If a brother or a sister is naked and lacks daily food, and one of you says to them, "Go in peace, keep warm, and eat your fill," and yet you do not supply their bodily needs, what is the good of that? So faith by itself, if it has no works, is dead. The book of James, chapter 2. Martin Luther believed that the book of James, along with the book of Revelation, contributed to an overemphasis on doing good, which detracted from Luther's message of grace. But that was his time, and the needed corrective he provided in the 16th century critiqued the unsustainable practice of salvation by good works. In our era, we ask a different question. We wonder about more earthly matters. How can we make a difference? Is our lifestyle sustainable for the planet? What is my purpose here? These questions don't negate the power of grace. Instead, they beg the follow-up question. What does this grace mean for the here and now, not just the hereafter? American religious scholar Martin Marty summarizes it best. It's not what you gotta do, it's what you get to do. In other words, it's not what we gotta do to earn God's favor, love, salvation promise. Rather, it's knowing that God's promise is a given, a starting point. Therefore, by embracing that promise, look what a difference we get to make. The freedom we have to serve our neighbor out of the grace, goodness, and love of God is a golden opportunity. I have a fantasy of a church that advertises itself as a service community. Perhaps a regular posting on Craigslist, the online classified site, could read, "Need stuff done? We're on it." If you want to reach a rougher crowd, you could substitute a different word for stuff. A congregation, a community of people whose sole purpose was to serve other people would be radical. That would be amazing, and it would also be one of the best ways to help people see God in everyday life. In several stories I received for this book, people identified their everyday spirituality in connection with service to others. Ed works for a corporation. It's not unusual to find him calling into meetings from an international hotel in China or Eastern Europe. This businessman developed a passion for people in Honduras after participating in several mission service trips. He now identifies this work as a central component of his spirituality. The church where he regularly worships has been led by a pastor who herself is deeply committed to helping people grow in their discipleship and spirituality. Susan recently told me that after 11 years of cultivating meaningful conversations around faith, her leadership team identified action and service as the core of who they are as God's people. Their scripture emphasis is the book of James. Outside of formal church activities, others wrote to describe times of helping neighbors, housing someone while they saved enough money to rent their own place, and visiting people in prisons or hospitals. Fran described her volunteer work at a local public library where she teaches middle school children reading. Well into her retirement years, she described several instances of addressing such challenging topics as racism, religious bias, or bullying. Her approach is to build trust with children and then challenge them to see the perspective of the other. My faith comes to life when I'm doing this volunteer service, she wrote. Service can be big and bold and include travels around the world. It can also be quiet and small. In the same way that generosity helps us be our best and discover our better angels, service works in a similar way. People do small things every day, every week, and every so often. These small acts include mowing a neighbor's yard while they recover from surgery, letting the single mom with 2 kids go in front of you at the grocery store checkout line, hiring someone who needs a chance, encouraging a forlorn teenager with a project. The list could go on. When I engage in service, I become a more interesting and attractive person. When I'm selfish and focused on myself, I'm not so fun to be around. Service changes me, shapes me, humanizes me. When I am focused on me, no one wants to be around me. But when I am sharing myself, extending myself, or helping others, I open myself up to an encounter with God. I'm also a much more attractive person to be around. What is the single most impactful way that people realize they are already spiritual? I believe it's by engaging in acts of service to others. You want to be a different person? Get out of your way and serve. Maybe not every day, but how about every week? There are opportunities in front of you every single day.